Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alert came through. The red lights flashed across the command center of Mars Defense Station, and every screen showed the same message. Unknown transmission incoming. He sat down, his cup, and walked to the main console. "Sir, we're getting something big," said Lieutenant Parker, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "It's not coming from Earth or any of our colonies. The signal is massive, bigger than anything we've ever recorded." Jake leaned over her shoulder and watched the data scroll past. The transmission was using mathematical sequences that Earth scientists had only theorized about. Someone out there had technology that made human science look like children playing with toys. "Can we decode it?" Jake asked. "Already working on it, sir. The computer says it will take about 10 minutes to translate the core message." 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. Jake paced around the command center while his team worked. Mars Defense Station was humanity's most advanced military outpost, built to watch for threats from deep space. In the 5 years since it went online, they had never detected anything more interesting than asteroids and comets. Now they had first contact with alien intelligence, and Jake was the ranking officer who would have to decide how to respond. The translation finally came through, and Jake read it 3 times before he believed what he was seeing. "Greetings to the species of Earth. We are the Galactic Combat Federation, representing 47 civilized worlds across this spiral arm. We have observed your species for 62 of your years, and have determined that you meet the minimum requirements for participation in our grand tournament. This tournament occurs every 100 years and determines the military ranking of all member species. Your participation has been approved for entertainment purposes. A representative will arrive at your location in 72 hours to explain the terms and conditions. Do not attempt to flee or hide. We know where you are." Jake called Admiral Lisa Carter on Earth immediately. The conversation was tense and filled with questions neither of them could answer. Aliens existed. They had been watching humanity for decades. They wanted Earth to participate in some kind of fighting tournament, and they were coming whether humans wanted them to or not. 3 days later, the alien ship arrived. It appeared without warning, simply materializing in space near the station, as if it had always been there. The vessel was enormous, easily 10 times larger than any human spacecraft, and shaped like a twisted crystal that hurt to look at directly. A single shuttle detached from the alien ship and docked with Mars Defense Station. Jake met the visitor in the main airlock with a full security team, though he suspected their weapons would be useless against technology that could cross interstellar space. The alien stepped through the airlock, and Jake tried not to stare. It was tall, nearly 8 feet, and appeared to be made of living crystal. Light moved through its body in patterns that might have been thoughts or emotions. When it spoke, the words came from a small device attached to what might have been its chest. "I am Zektar, 3rd speaker for the Galactic Combat Federation. You are the military leader of this facility. Captain Jake Morrison, Mars Defense Command. Welcome to our station. There is no need for politeness. I am here to explain your participation in the grand tournament. Your species has been selected, based on your entertainment value." Jake felt his jaw tighten. Entertainment value? Yes. The tournament is a serious military exercise that determines the combat rankings of civilized species across the galaxy. However, the matches can become predictable when conducted only between advanced warrior races. Your species provides novelty. Your primitive fighting methods and emotional responses should amuse the spectators between important matches. The opera crystal being projected a holographic display showing various alien species in combat. Jake watched creatures that looked like giant insects fighting energy beings that seemed made of pure light. Reptilian warriors 8 feet tall battled against machines that moved faster than human eyes could follow. "You want us to fight these things?" Jake asked. "Not fight. Participate. The matches are designed to showcase military capability, not to produce casualties. Your species will be placed in the lowest tier with other developing civilizations. Think of it as a learning experience before you are eliminated." Jake looked at the display again. Every alien species shown was bigger, stronger, or more technologically advanced than humans. The tournament seemed designed to prove humanity's insignificance. What if we refuse? Refusal is not permitted. The Federation has determined that isolated species represent a potential threat to galactic stability. Participation in the tournament allows us to assess your true military capability. Non-participation results in immediate classification as a hostile unknown, with appropriate defensive measures taken against your world. The threat was clear. Participate in their tournament or face the combined military might of 47 alien civilizations. When does this tournament begin? In 30 of your days, you will select 5 representatives to compete on behalf of your species. They will be provided with standard tournament equipment and brief training in galactic combat protocols. The matches will continue until your team is eliminated, which statistical analysis suggests will occur during the first round. After Zektar left, Jake spent hours in communication with Earth. Admiral Carter was furious about the aliens' condescending attitude, but she recognized the strategic opportunity. If humanity could perform better than expected, it might earn respect from the galactic community. If they failed completely, at least they would learn about alien military capabilities. Carter assigned Jake to lead the human team. His orders were simple: represent humanity with honor, gather as much intelligence as possible about alien capabilities, and try not to get killed in the process. Jake began selecting his team immediately. He chose Marine Sergeant Alex Rodriguez for close combat expertise, Lieutenant Emma Walsh for her tactical brilliance and piloting skills, Dr. Ryan Brooks for his engineering knowledge, and Corporal Maya Johnson for her unconventional warfare training. As the team prepared to depart, Earth aboard the starship UES Defiant, Jake wondered what they were walking into. The aliens expected humanity to provide entertainment through their inevitable defeat. Jake planned to give them entertainment, but not the kind they were expecting. The galaxy was about to learn that humans did not go quietly into any night. The tournament station was beyond anything Jake Morrison had imagined. The structure orbited a neutron star, using its immense gravity to power systems that could support millions of beings. The station stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction, with docking bays large enough to hold Earth's entire space fleet. As the UES Defiant approached its assigned berth, Jake watched through the viewport as alien ships of every conceivable design moved through the traffic patterns. Some ships looked like living creatures. Others resembled geometric puzzles that hurt to look at. A few were so large they had their own weather systems. "Sir, we're getting docking instructions," Emma Walsh reported from the pilot seat. "They're putting us in section Z99. According to the station map, that's the furthest section from the main tournament arena." "The cheap seats," Alex Rodriguez muttered, checking his gear for the 10th time. "They really don't expect much from us." Dr. Ryan Brooks looked up from his tablet where he had been studying alien technology reports. "The power readings from this station are incredible. They're drawing energy directly from the neutron star's magnetic field. Our entire civilization couldn't build something like this." Maya Johnson was quiet, watching the alien traffic with calculating eyes. "Look at their movement patterns. Every species flies in perfect formation. No deviation, no creativity. They follow rules even when they don't have to." The docking process took 2 hours because human ships were not designed for galactic standard connections. When they finally secured to the station, a delegation of tournament officials was waiting for them. The group was led by Tournament Director Velkun, a 6-armed insectoid creature that stood 9 feet tall. Its translator device spoke in a bored monotone. "Human delegation, you are late. Registration was scheduled to conclude 1 hour ago." "We apologize," Jake said. "Our ships are not familiar with your docking systems. This confirms initial assessments of your technological limitations. Follow me to complete your registration and receive your equipment assignments." As they walked through the station corridors, Jake's team drew stares from every alien they passed. Most of the attention seemed amused rather than hostile. Groups of towering reptilian warriors pointed at the humans and made sounds that the translators interpreted as laughter. Energy beings flickered in patterns that suggested mockery. At the registration center, Velkin handed Jake a data pad showing the tournament bracket. "You have been placed in the preliminary elimination tier. Your first opponent will be the Pelorian Guard, a species known for their defensive capabilities and overwhelming numbers. Jake studied the bracket. Earth was listed at the bottom with a combat probability rating of 0.003%. The favorites were species with names like the Carathian Empire, the Ethereal Collective, and the Nexus Coalition. Each had won multiple tournaments and held military control over dozens of star systems. What are our living arrangements? Emma asked. Section Z quarters. Minimal amenities appropriate for brief stays. Statistical models predict your elimination within the first round, so extended accommodations were deemed unnecessary. The quarters were small and clearly designed for species much different from humans. The beds were too hard, the lighting was too dim, and the air recyclers created a constant humming noise. But the team had lived in worse conditions during military deployments. That evening, Jake called a planning meeting. We need intelligence on our opponents and the arena systems. Emma, I want you studying every match recording they'll let us access. Ryan, figure out what equipment we can modify or improve. Maya, watch the other teams and learn their patterns. Alex, you're with me. We're going to walk around and let people underestimate us while we gather information. Emma spent hours in the station's archives watching footage of previous tournaments. The combat was brutal, but followed predictable patterns. Each species seemed to have developed tactics based on their natural abilities and never deviated from those approaches. The Pelorians always use the same strategy, she reported back to the team. They form defensive circles and use acid secretions to create barriers. Then they advance slowly, trying to trap opponents in smaller and smaller spaces. Every single match, identical tactics. Ryan Brooks had been examining the equipment provided by tournament officials. The weapons are designed to incapacitate rather than kill, but they're still dangerous. The armor is basic protection gear. What's interesting is that we're allowed to modify anything they give us, but apparently no species ever does. Why not? Jake asked. Because they think the equipment is already perfect. Every alien species I've observed approaches problems as if there's only one correct solution. They can't imagine that the standard approach might not be the best approach. Maya Johnson had spent the day observing other teams during their practice sessions. They train like machines. Perfect formations, flawless execution, no improvisation. The Carathian warriors practice the same combat sequence over and over. The energy beings move in mathematical patterns. Even their recreational activities follow rigid structures. Alex Rodriguez had noticed something else during their walks. Around the station. They're all watching us, but not like threats, like entertainment. I heard some aliens placing bets on how long we'll last. The longest estimate was 12 minutes. Jake looked at his team. They were exhausted from the journey and overwhelmed by the scale of what they faced. But there was something in their eyes that the aliens had not accounted for. Humans did not give up easily. Here's what we're going to do, Jake said. We're going to let them keep thinking we're harmless. We'll act confused and intimidated. Meanwhile, we prepare for combat like our lives depend on it. Because they might. The betting odds across the station heavily favored humanity's swift defeat. Alien spectators discussed the upcoming match as a brief warm-up before the real competition began. Some suggested the humans might surrender immediately when they realized what they faced. None of them understood that humans had been the underdog in every fight throughout their species' history. And humans had developed some very effective ways of dealing with superior opponents. The arena was enormous, stretching nearly a mile in every direction. Jake Morrison stood at the human team entrance watching as the environment shifted and changed around them. The floor rose and fell to create hills and valleys. Water began, flowing through channels that had not existed moments before. Thick vegetation sprouted from the ground in designated areas. Multi-terrain combat zone, Emma Walsh observed, checking her weapon systems one final time. They want to test adaptability to different environments. Tournament Director Velkun's voice echoed through the arena speakers. Today we witness the first match of the Grand Tournament. In the red corner, representing the Pelorian Guard, 5 warriors of proven defensive capability. In the blue corner, representing Earth, 5 humans selected for entertainment value. The crowd's reaction was immediate and loud. Thousands of alien spectators filled the viewing stands, and their sounds of amusement needed no translation. Jake could hear what sounded like alien laughter coming from every direction. "Remember the plan," Jake said to his team through their communication system. "Stay mobile, stay unpredictable, and make them come to us." The Pelorian team entered from the opposite side of the arena. They were exactly as Emma's research had described them. Each creature was roughly 8 feet long and 4 feet wide, resembling giant slugs with armored shells on their backs. They moved slowly but with purpose, already beginning to secrete the acidic substances that would form their defensive barriers. The match timer began counting down from 60 seconds. Jake watched as the Pelorians immediately formed their traditional circle formation in the center of the arena. Acid began pooling around them, creating a corrosive moat that would prevent close combat approaches. "Just like the training videos," Alex Rodriguez said. "They never changed tactics." "That's what we're counting on," Maya Johnson replied, moving toward her assigned position. The timer reached 0 and combat began. The Pelorians continued their standard strategy, expanding their acid barriers while slowly advancing as a group. They expected the humans to either charge directly into the acid or retreat to the arena edges where they could be cornered. Instead, the humans scattered in 5 different directions. Jake sprinted toward the water channels on the eastern side of the arena. Emma moved into the vegetation zone in the north. Alex headed for the rocky hills in the west. Maya disappeared into a valley in the south. Ryan Brooks took position on elevated ground in the center, but far from the Pelorian formation. The alien crowd grew quiet. This was not how tournament matches were supposed to begin. Species always maintained formation and engaged in direct combat. The humans were running away from the fight entirely. The Pelorians hesitated for the first time in their combat history. Their strategy required opponents to behave predictably. They had no protocols for enemies who refused to engage according to established rules. "Now," Jake said into his communicator. Ryan Brooks activated the first of his improvised devices. He had spent the previous night modifying standard tournament equipment into something the galaxy had never seen. The device was simple, just a timer connected to an electromagnetic pulse generator, but the effect was devastating. The pulse disrupted the Pelorians' natural electrical systems for 3 seconds. Not long enough to cause permanent damage, but long enough to interrupt their acid production. Their defensive barriers stopped expanding. Emma Walsh emerged from the vegetation like a ghost, firing precisely aimed shots at the nearest Pelorian. Her targets were not random. She had studied their anatomy and knew exactly where their sensory organs were located. Each shot was designed to confuse and disorient rather than seriously injure. The Pelorian she targeted began spinning in circles, completely unable to determine where the attacks were coming from. Its acid secretions became erratic, creating gaps in the defensive formation. Maya Johnson struck next, but not with weapons. She activated a sound amplification device Ryan had modified from tournament communication equipment. The noise that filled the arena was unlike anything the Pelorians had ever heard. It was chaotic, random, and specifically designed to trigger their species' natural panic responses. 2 more Pelorians broke formation, moving away from the sound source and directly into Alex Rodriguez's carefully planned ambush. Alex had been watching Pelorian movement patterns and noticed they always retreated along the same predictable paths when under stress. He did not attack them directly. Instead, he triggered a series of small explosive charges that Ryan had created from tournament equipment power cells. The explosions created loud noises and bright flashes but caused no real damage. However, they drove the panicked Pelorians directly toward Jake's position. Jake was waiting in the water channels with another of Ryan's modifications. He had turned a standard tournament net launcher into something far more effective by adding metallic elements that would conduct electricity. When the fleeing Pelorians entered the water, Jake deployed the net and activated the electrical charge. The water conducted electricity throughout the channel system, creating a non-lethal but extremely unpleasant shock for anything touching the water. The 2 Pelorians in the channel immediately retreated onto dry land, exactly where Emma Walsh was waiting with perfectly aimed stun shots. The entire engagement lasted 8 minutes. When the smoke cleared, all 5 Pelorians were unconscious or incapacitated, while the human team remained completely uninjured. The arena fell silent. 60,000 alien spectators sat in stunned quiet, trying to understand what they had witnessed. The Pelorian Guard had never lost a preliminary match. They were supposed to be eliminated only by advanced warrior species in later tournament rounds. Tournament director Velkun reviewed the match recordings 3 times before announcing the results. Victory to the human team by complete incapacitation of opponents. As Jake's team left the arena, they could hear the alien crowd beginning to buzz with confused conversation. The humans had not fought like any species the galaxy had ever seen. They had not maintained formation. They had not engaged in direct combat. They had not followed any recognizable tactical doctrine. Instead, they had treated the match like a puzzle to be solved rather than a battle to be won. They had used creativity, deception, and psychological warfare in ways that galactic military science could not classify or counter. In the betting centers throughout the station, the odds on humanity's elimination began to change for the first time in tournament history. Something unprecedented was happening, and nobody knew what it meant. Jake Morrison smiled as he walked toward the team preparation area. The galaxy was beginning to learn that humans did not play by anyone else's rules. They made their own. News of humanity's victory spread through the tournament station faster than light-speed communications. Within hours, every alien delegation knew about the impossible match result. The Pelorian Guard had been defeated by the species that was supposed to provide comic relief. Jake Morrison found himself surrounded by alien reporters outside the human quarters. Their questions came through translation devices in dozens of different languages, but the meaning was always the same. How had such a primitive species defeated an established warrior race? We studied our opponents and adapted our tactics accordingly, Jake answered simply. He did not explain the psychology behind their strategy or reveal the modifications Ryan Brooks had made to their equipment. Let the galaxy wonder. Tournament director Velkun called an emergency meeting with the Federation Council representatives. The insectoid official was clearly agitated, its 6 arms moving in rapid patterns that suggested extreme stress. The humans have created an unprecedented situation, Velkun reported. Their victory was not achieved through superior strength, advanced technology, or conventional tactics. Our combat analysis computers cannot classify their methods according to any known military doctrine. The Carathian Empire's representative, a massive reptilian warrior named Krextar, laughed dismissively. One lucky victory means nothing. Place them against real opponents and they will be crushed quickly. But the Ethereal Collective's delegate disagreed. The energy beings' translated thoughts were concerned. Their approach suggests a fundamentally different understanding of combat itself. This requires further study. The betting markets throughout the station were in chaos. Odds on humanity's immediate elimination had dropped from certain to merely probable. Some alien gamblers were actually placing money on the humans to advance further in the tournament. Emma Walsh spent her time between matches studying recordings of their upcoming opponents. The next match would be against the Shard Warriors, a crystalline species that could reflect energy weapons and coordinate their movements with mathematical precision. They fight like living geometry, Emma reported to the team. Perfect angles, flawless formations, absolutely no deviation from calculated optimal positions. Their crystal bodies can redirect any energy attack back at opponents. Ryan Brooks was already working on countermeasures. If they reflect energy, we don't use energy weapons. If they move in mathematical patterns, we use mathematics against them. What do you mean? Maya Johnson asked. Chaos theory. Small changes in initial conditions can create massive changes in complex systems. If their formations depend on perfect mathematical relationships, introducing random variables should collapse their entire strategy. Alex Rodriguez tested the modified equipment Ryan had prepared. Instead of standard tournament weapons, they now carried devices that could create random electromagnetic interference, unpredictable sound patterns, and irregular light displays. Nothing that would cause serious harm, but everything designed to disrupt precise calculations. The match against the Shard Warriors began in an arena filled with reflective surfaces. The crystalline opponents immediately formed a perfect hexagonal formation, their bodies angled to create an impenetrable network of energy reflection. Any weapon fired at them would be redirected back at the attacker with doubled force. The alien crowd expected the humans to make the same mistake most species made against the Shard Warriors. They would fire their weapons, watch the energy bounce back, and be eliminated by their own attacks. Instead, the humans did something no species had ever attempted. They began dancing. Maya Johnson started it, moving in completely random patterns while activating sound generators that produced irregular noise. Alex Rodriguez joined her, his movements equally unpredictable, while triggering light displays that flashed in chaotic sequences. The Shard Warriors' formation began to waver. Their mathematical precision required predictable inputs to calculate optimal positions. The random human movements created variables their systems could not process. Emma Walsh struck next, but not with weapons. She used a modified gravity generator to create tiny fluctuations in the arena's artificial gravity field. The changes were barely noticeable to organic beings, but they disrupted the precise balance the Shard Warriors needed to maintain their formation. Jake Morrison coordinated the chaos, directing his team's random movements in patterns that seemed random, but were actually designed to maximize the mathematical confusion affecting their opponents. The Shard Warriors tried to adapt, but their crystalline nature made rapid changes impossible. As their formation collapsed, individual warriors became vulnerable to the one thing they could not reflect: physical contact. Ryan Brooks had created nets woven with materials that would stick to crystal surfaces. When the Shard Warriors broke formation, the humans deployed the nets not as weapons but as tools to gently restrain their opponents until the match was declared over. Another impossible victory. The arena fell silent again as alien spectators tried to process what they had witnessed. The humans had defeated a species that had never lost to conventional tactics by using methods that were not tactics at all. The third match came against the Swarm Collective, a hive-minded species that moved with perfect coordination because they shared a single consciousness. Conventional military wisdom said hive minds were unbeatable because they had no individual weaknesses to exploit. Emma Walsh proved conventional wisdom wrong by doing something the hive mind could not understand. She acted as an individual within a coordinated team effort. While her teammates created distractions, she made personal decisions that were not communicated to the rest of her team. The hive mind could predict coordinated attacks because it understood shared consciousness. It could not predict individual initiative because such behavior was impossible within their own species. Maya Johnson and Alex Rodriguez demonstrated something even more confusing to the hive mind. They began arguing with each other in the middle of combat, disagreeing about tactics while still working toward the same goal. The concept of cooperation despite disagreement was so alien to the Swarm Collective that their shared consciousness began experiencing what could only be described as a headache. By the fourth match, alien military observers from across the galaxy were attending human competitions. What had started as entertainment was becoming a masterclass in unconventional warfare. Species that had never lost battles were studying human tactics and finding their own strategies inadequate. The Carathian Empire's champion team demanded an immediate match against the humans. Their pride had been wounded by watching lesser species fall to primitive tactics. Krextar personally challenged Jake Morrison to single combat. Tournament director Velkun was forced to deny the request. The humans must advance through proper channels according to tournament regulations. However, current statistical projections suggest they will reach the final rounds. For the first time in galactic history, the phrase statistical projections was followed by uncertainty rather than confidence. Nobody knew what the humans would do next, and that was the most terrifying thing the galaxy had ever encountered. Jake Morrison received a private communication from Admiral Carter on Earth. The entire galaxy is watching now. Whatever you do, in that final match will determine humanity's place in galactic civilization for generations to come. Jake looked at his team and smiled. They had already exceeded every expectation. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humans could really do. The final match arena was different from all the others. Instead of environmental challenges, it was a simple circular platform surrounded by energy barriers. No tricks, no special terrain, just pure combat between two teams in an open space. The Carathian Empire had demanded a traditional fight, and tournament director Velkun had agreed. Jake Morrison stood with his team at one entrance while the Carathian champions waited at the other. These reptilian warriors were massive, each standing over 8 feet tall with natural armor plating and claws that could tear through steel. They carried weapons that had conquered dozens of star systems and wore the scars of 1,000 battles. The crowd was the largest in tournament history. Representatives from every galactic civilization had come to witness what many believed would be humanity's final match. The betting had stabilized with the Carathians as heavy favorites, but significant money was now riding on the humans to at least survive longer than previous opponents. Krextar, the Carathian team leader, stepped forward before the match began. His translator device amplified his words throughout the arena. Humans, you have impressed the galaxy with your victories against lesser species. Now face true warriors and learn your place in the cosmic order. Jake did not respond with words. Instead, he looked at his team and nodded once. They had spent days preparing for this moment, not by training harder or building better equipment, but by studying their opponents in ways no galactic species had ever considered. The match timer began its countdown. The Carathians immediately formed their battle line, weapons raised, ready to advance in perfect military formation. Their strategy was simple and had never failed. Overwhelming force applied with tactical precision. The humans spread out across their side of the platform, but not in any recognizable formation. Emma Walsh moved to the left, Alex Rodriguez to the right, Maya Johnson forward, Ryan Brooks back, and Jake remained in the center. From above, they looked like random points scattered across the arena floor. Combat began. The Carathians advanced as expected, maintaining perfect spacing and mutual support. Their weapons fired in coordinated volleys designed to eliminate the human team through concentrated firepower. But the humans were not where the weapons were aimed. Each team member moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually based on something the Carathians could not predict. Human intuition. Emma Walsh ducked left exactly when her instincts told her to, avoiding a blast that should have been impossible to dodge. Alex Rodriguez rolled right based on a feeling he could not explain, escaping what should have been a killing shot. Maya Johnson jumped backward for no logical reason and avoided a weapon that fired exactly where she had been standing. The Carathians adjusted their aim and fired again. Once more, the humans moved in ways that made no tactical sense but somehow avoided every attack. It was as if they could predict the future, but Jake knew better. They were simply trusting their human instincts in ways that logical species never could. Ryan Brooks activated the first of his final modifications. Not weapons or defensive devices, but something far more dangerous to a species that relied on perfect coordination. Music. The sound that filled the arena was unlike anything the galaxy had heard in combat. It was chaotic, emotional, and completely unpredictable. Human music from Earth, played at volumes that disrupted the Carathians' internal communication systems. The reptilian warriors tried to maintain formation, but the music affected their ability to coordinate. Their perfect battle line began to waver as individual warriors lost synchronization with their teammates. Maya Johnson struck next with psychological warfare perfected through human military history. She began laughing. Not nervous laughter or combat stress, but genuine amusement at the situation. The sound was so unexpected that 2 Carathians actually stopped fighting to stare at her. "Is that all you have?" Maya called out through her translator. "We've faced scarier opponents at training exercises on Earth. My grandmother could fight better than this." Alex Rodriguez joined the verbal assault. "These are supposed to be galactic champions? They move like they're wearing cement boots. Do they even know they're in a fight?" The insults were more than words. They were carefully chosen psychological attacks designed to make the Carathians angry enough to break formation and charge individually. Human military doctrine had always recognized that angry enemies make stupid mistakes. The strategy worked perfectly. 3 Carathians broke ranks and charged toward the taunting humans, abandoning their coordinated formation for personal combat. Emma Walsh was ready for them with nets modified to tangle large opponents without causing injury. Jake Morrison coordinated the chaos, but not through commands or tactical instructions. He did it through something uniquely human. Leadership by example. When he moved, his team moved with him not because they were ordered to, but because they trusted him completely. The remaining Carathians found themselves facing an enemy they could not understand. The humans fought as individuals but moved as a team. They made decisions independently but worked toward common goals. They argued with each other while still supporting each other perfectly. The final moment came when Krextar himself faced Jake in single combat. The Carathian leader was stronger, faster, and more experienced. His weapons were superior and his armor was nearly impenetrable. By every logical measure, Jake should have been defeated in seconds. Instead, Jake did something that shocked the watching galaxy. He smiled. "You know what your problem is?" Jake said, dodging a strike that would have killed most beings. "You fight like this is work. Humans fight like this is fun." And that was the truth the galaxy finally understood. Humans did not see combat as a necessary evil or a test of strength. They saw it as a challenge to be overcome, a puzzle to be solved, a game to be won. They brought joy to warfare, and joy was the most powerful weapon in the universe. The match ended with all 5 Carathians unconscious and all 5 humans standing victorious. The arena erupted in sounds that no translation device could interpret. 60,000 alien beings were witnessing something that would change galactic civilization forever. Tournament director Velkun made the announcement that echoed across the galaxy. The Grand Tournament champion is the human team from Earth. By unanimous decision of the Federation Council, Earth is invited to join the Galactic Combat Federation not as a member species, but as military advisors to all civilizations. Jake Morrison looked up at the cheering crowd and realized that humanity had just earned its place among the stars. Not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through the one thing that made humans unique in the galaxy. They never gave up, and they always found a way to win.